Hey guys, this is Chris with Drop Dice. So we are back again this week with another advice style video. This is the Choice Matters series, and this week we're talking about the City Challenge. So this was an idea that I came up with so that I could challenge myself to do something I'm not very good at. Normally inside my games, I do an epic journey style game. Think Lord of the Rings. Essentially, you start in one location with something that seems humble, like destroy this ring. But you must take it to this location because it's the only location that it can be destroyed. And along the way, there are many adventures that tie together to create this epic journey. And that's typically how I run games, but I'd like to try and change that. I'd like to keep games a little bit more centralized because it's something I'm weak in, and I feel like challenging yourself is a good way to improve your game quality and content. So definitely give this a try with me if you would. Or if this doesn't apply to you and you're great at city games, maybe you should throw me some comments about some tips that you may have that I maybe miss inside this video. Because if you're a pro, I can definitely learn from you, and that's the best part about doing these communities and throwing out this stuff like this. So let's kind of talk about the City Challenge, what it is, and how we're going to do it. So first we need to set a time limit for ourselves, and this is to create this so that we aren't just building and building and building forever and getting world builder syndrome, where eventually we're going to get tired of this whole endeavor. So I'm going to set a 2-week limit for myself so that I can start playing inside this city that I create. We're going to set a limit to the settlement size, which I chose some D&D terms because it's the most popular game system out there, so I wanted to use some terms that people would be familiar with. Is it a village, town, city, or a new one that I've added, which is a major city? Because inevitably inside games that have high fantasy in them, there becomes a point where a city just becomes too big, that it has to be considered a major city. Maybe it's a capital, or maybe it's not a capital. It's just, let's say, a trade city in the middle of a desert. It's an oasis city, and it's the only thing for thousands of miles. And because of that, it's just grown into this huge monstrosity. That's a major city. Now, the reason for that is to help us decide on districts, but we'll get to that in a second. The first thing that I would like to ask is what kind of citizens live in the city and why? In fictional games like D&D and others, there's often multiple races. Why did these races come together? If you look at them in game terms, do they normally get along? If they don't normally get along, what's caused them to get along in this situation? Why would long-lived elves choose to live with short-lived humans? These are all kind of questions that you can use to define and shape your city as kind of a rough draft, if you will. You should also know what the city imports and exports, what it's known for, which is kind of my last bullet point here. What is the settlement known for, and what is the stereotype of the people in the settlement? This kind of goes hand in hand with those what kind of citizens live there questions. Now, the stereotype is great because once you've developed a stereotype, you can use it pretty much for all of your citizens. Let's say that you create a stereotype. The stereotype of the city is it's a den of thieves, that no one should be trusted, that you should hold on to your purse strings because someone will steal from you. That peppers how I should play every NPC that they interact with, because a good and honest NPC inside the city will be nervous or protective, or he will be a strong arm, that the only reason he's managed to last this long in the city is because people fear him or fear what he could do if he's kind-hearted, that sort of thing. It'll definitely pepper how you play your NPCs. Now, with each type of settlement, what I'd like you to do is roll a DX, which is going to be randomized to help determine how many districts you should have. 6 for a town, 8 for a city, and a 12 for a major city. Each of these districts you have to ask why they exist and what are they called. Is there an official name or an unofficial name? If there is an official name, what is the official name? Let's say that this city we're going to call Bleakwater Bay happens to be along the coastline, and one of the districts is the Harbor District. That's its official name. Or perhaps its official name is, let's say, Queens Harbor. Inside the Queens Harbor District, the commoners actually refer to it as the Rat's Nest. And the question is, why do they call it the Rat's Nest? Is it because the there are migrant workers who sit on the docks all day looking for any sort of work that they can find, and they're commonly referred to as wharf rats. And this part of the city is actually one of the safest. Or perhaps it's quite opposite of that. It's called the rat's nest because this is the heart of the criminal organization within the city. That the crime here is so organized that the guards just don't walk through this part of the city, that to root them out would be as hard as rooting out rats in a basement, which is what your players have been hired for, is to take care of the rat problem in Queen's Harbor by the guards. But the guards have been careful to lead your characters into a situation that would get them in deeper than they would expect, but save the guards of their own personnel. So definitely an interesting idea. With that, you also have to ask how much law enforcement is in each district, what is the law of the land, and how are crimes punished. This could vary as much as any other city. You could do crimes are judged independently from each other, which is the American legal system standard, which is two people can go to jail for, or go to court for stealing the same item, but depending on circumstance may be judged differently. One may get a year in prison, one may get 3 months, depending on what the circumstances are, who's involved in the case, and a number of other variables. Or is it something more black and white? This is again an extreme, but let's say that all crime, regardless of what it is exile. Well, that doesn't sound terrible unless exile is into a terrible situation. The desert oasis city, exile could mean certain death. You've been put back out into the desert to never be allowed back in this major city. And depending on what that major city serves for, that could be a huge punishment. If that city is the biggest trade city between your nation and the others, that airships only fly to this one city, you now have to pay people to go to that city for you. You can't just go yourself anymore. So that's kind of the major things. Now let's talk about my challenge specifically, how I'm going to handle it, and what we're going to do about it. So I put it at the bottom here. My time limit is going to be 2 weeks. My setting is Rukkagon, which is the Legend of the Five Rings setting. I put 4th edition there because that's the edition I'm using, but it has been the setting for all of its creation. My districts are going to be 6 because I did a city and I rolled a 6 on my d8. My challenge is to make a a believable living, breathing city. Each district must have 3 major NPCs for a total of 18 for the districts, plus 12 additional NPCs of choice, which means some districts may have more NPCs of choice. Each NPC should be tied to another or multiple. My suggestion is to use a relationship chart, which I'll show you guys a video on how I developed the relationship chart for this city, so that you can create your own in the future. It's a great tool for intrigue games, horror, or courtly games, to be honest. It shows the connections between people and allows you ways to manipulate that, or at least for your players to manipulate that. Each NPC should have 3 rumors about them. I love rumors. Some of them should be true and some of them should be false. Instead of simply saying that the mayor pays you to take care of the rat problem inside the rat's nest, you can turn around and say that the mayor sees you coming and he's talking very loudly to his aide, and he says, there's been quite the rat problem lately down in the Queen's Harbor. The people seem to be quite bothered with it. Perhaps we should hire somebody to go take care of that. That little kind of whispering between the mayor and his aide might be enough to intrigue your players. Or, for Legend of the Five Rings, a courtly woman is speaking to another man. She says to him, I hear that Lord Inazuna has been practicing some new art form. And then she opens her fan very cautiously and looks around the room. After a moment of hesitation, she leans a little closer and she says, I hear that he has been practicing art of the crimson variety. Long-term players would realize that crimson is red, perhaps tying it to blood or blood magic, meaning that perhaps Lord Inazuna is involved in blood magic. And this could be true, or it could be simply false, but a good player will be interested to know the truth of it, whether he can use that for his own purposes, or perhaps it's something that he just doesn't want inside his city, because a major city that players are interested in will be one that they're interested in protecting. With that, I'd like to create 15 adventure seeds: 3 horror, 3 courtly, 3 intrigue, 3 action, 3 spiritual. And I intend to do a video for each adventure seed that I do to kind of show how I prep each game, because in doing these L5R drop-in, drop-out campaign videos, I've had people question me how to create a L5R adventure, which is a little bit different than a standard D&D adventure, just because there's a little bit of nuancy changes to it and how you tell the story. So I will release those as players make it through those adventure seeds, so that you can see how I develop them and how they maybe tie to a greater picture. If the video ties to a greater picture, however, I will not reveal that until the players have revealed that themselves, because I don't want the players to get anything spoiled for them. I will create a city challenge playlist where I'll go through this and to kind of give you guys an idea, but again, 2 weeks is my limit, so I'll break it down into some major points and then answer these questions and perhaps generate some new ones to elaborate further on whatever my task for that video is. If you guys like this idea and you are a subscriber, make sure you hit the thumbs up or share this video. If you're new to the channel or just not a subscriber yet, I would ask you to go ahead and subscribe, of course. And if not, thumbs up and share was also very helpful to me. Lets me know that you guys are actually really enjoying the content here. With that, guys, I thank you for sticking around with me and helping me out through my journey as a online creator of games and content to get to where I am now. I'm at 560 subscribers. The channel's been going for over a year now, and I kind of forget how many videos I have, but it's quite a bit. Let's take a look here for my video manager. It looks like I have 168 videos, which is far more than I would have expected myself to have this time last year, when I started this just to kind of have something to do. And this has grown into an additional hobby to further push my gaming hobby and interests. With that, guys, thank you all, and I will see you at the gaming table.